All right, you are now tuned in to the Rotated Views podcast, episode number 47, Man in the Mirror. Yeah. I am your host, Jimmylee Velez. I am here with Goose, Heck, Manny, and Gabe. That's right, folks. We are here stacked with the entire crew. Before we get things started, don't forget to download and subscribe. Every Tuesday morning, we drop a new episode. If you're new, thank you for joining us. We hope you appreciate and enjoy the content. There's a lot of hard work and effort that goes into putting this together. All right, so Man in the Mirror. In this episode, we discuss reflection, contemplation, self-inquiry, and insight. We review the lyrics to Michael Jackson's song Man in the Mirror, very appropriate, and we completely break down the process of reflection, the importance of it, and its advantages. We wrap the episode up with quotes from Alan Cohen and Thomas Paine. All right, so if you're new, I like to kick things off with a definition from dictionary.com. I define the word reflection, and they define it as a fixing of the thoughts on something, careful consideration. So we are going to now break down just the first couple, stanzas or whatever they call in the lyrics of Michael Jackson's "Man in the Mirror." All right, so no, oh gosh, no, I don't want to disrespect the song. So how we came up with this was Manny wanted to do an episode on reflection, so I figured let's have fun with it. Let's do it. Yeah. A lot of times we did in the past stuff on goal setting and stuff like that, and that all had a little bit of reflection and kind of things like that, looking back on the year and what you did. But we are going to dedicate our full attention to the topic of reflection. So I thought it was appropriate that we use Michael Jackson's Man in the Mirror, because even as a child, I remember listening to this song and thinking like, wow, that's a totally different song, and this guy's like, introspectively looking at the world. I couldn't put it into words at the time, but that's basically what's going on. Anyway, so Man in the Mirror. I'm gonna make a change for once in my life. It's gonna feel real good. Gonna make a difference, gonna make it right. As I turn up the collar on my favorite winter coat, the wind is blowing my mind. I see the kids in the street with not enough to eat. Who am I to be blind? Pretending not to see their needs, a summer's disregard, a broken bottle top, and a one-man soul. They follow each other on the wind, 'cause they got nowhere to go. That's why I want you to know. I'm starting with the man in the mirror. I'm asking him to change his ways, and no message could have been any clearer. If you want to make the world a better place, take a look at yourself and then make a change.
As you're saying that, I had the beat in my head going.
I know. It's terrible when you just read it off, because I'm wanting to sing it so bad. But anyway, for everyone's ears, believe me, you're happy that I read that. So this is absolutely fascinating to me, because every time I read it, it's still the music video still doesn't come to my mind. I actually just still picture Michael Jackson putting this song together and like actually experiencing something enough anyway to put it down in lyrics. He's saying he's seeing people's needs and as he pops the collar on his coat, and then he sees someone, of need, and who am I to be blind, so to speak, and not see this? And then he challenges himself.
Well, at the same time, he sees that man that's in the mirror. That's go through all that stuff. That person's been through that too. Mm-hmm. Like you said, he's trying to cover it up by trying to act like there's nothing wrong. But as he looks at himself in the mirror, he's been through these situations that everyone's going through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I just think that when he says I'm starting with the man in the mirror, and then asking him to change his ways, that's what they call a revelation almost. You see that there's an issue. You see that maybe you're part of the issue. Because if you're asking yourself to change, then you're contributing to the problem. And the fact that my thing is that the fact that you realize that, and then normally people see a problem and say, let's just for example say he said something, as someone impoverished or whatever.
Yeah.
Why don't you give them money? Why don't rich people give them money? A lot of people just completely start pointing fingers or whatever. Well, he just took it on himself, asking himself to change. Which also leads me to the point. It was like that. It's always fascinating to me when I see comments like on all over social media when someone wins the lottery and they're so quick to give away other people's money.
Yeah, oh yeah.
But when it comes to them, everything's different.
Yeah.
But anyway, starting with those lyrics, obviously that's not the complete song, but it's always fascinating when I see someone who actually takes in life and processes it. He's like, you could see him digesting it. I guess that's what I was trying to say when I was like, I could picture him writing this.
Yeah.
Like he'll sit back, like write a line and like just like think about it. I'm not sure if that was his process or if he even wrote this. I'm just saying like that's what I picture when I hear the song. Him really going through it.
Or somebody, even if he didn't. I don't know if he wrote it or didn't write it, but it's interesting to go through that whole process. Like a guy is actually walking down the street, realizing all this and having an epiphany. Like, man, that's not changing. Well, what can I do to make it better? Yeah. Or what can I do to make that change?
Right.
And you start to look within. It starts with you, and then it obviously is just kind of a snowball effect from there. But yeah, it's really interesting to kind of see the process.
And actually, what I thought was that, I think we've talked about this a bunch of times, is that in order to make an impact on other people is to be the example first.
Yeah, sure. Exactly.
So you make the changes yourself first, and then you show the people that you can do whatever, and they'll follow you. Maybe, like you always said, to a lesser extent, but you help other people along the way, showing you that you can do it too.
It's a plaque that I have sitting between me and Gabe. Be the change you wish to see in the world. But anyway. That is that's the beginning stages of where your life is about to take a complete paradigm shift. Someone's moving into a good direction when they're starting with themselves and knowing it's them. All right, so let's move on. We all reflect. How deep we go into analyzing makes all the difference. In your opinion, what's the point of reflection? I'll just put this on Manny since he wanted to.
Oh, no pressure. No pressure.
Came ready. He got his little social studies book with him.
That's right. This came. I think I texted Jim last week. I was looking over some reports at work from. I'm coming up on 5 years, and the financial reports in 5 years, looking at them, have been humongous change. And it was just like, how the hell did I get here?
Yeah.
All the positive.
Right.
But I never took inventory of, you go in every day and you just do it and you do it and you do it. You kind of, nose to the grindstone. And you don't look back and think of, all right, what worked, what didn't work. You get it on a grand level, on a broader scale. Okay, that works, big things. But what were the little things that made the extra difference, that one day or that 1 week or that 1 quarter or that first half of the year where you had exponential growth and you might have kind of tailed off on the second half? What was it? I never looked back and thought to myself, well, what did I do those 6 months? Or, what did we accomplish? How did we accomplish it those 6 months?
Yeah, why is it working?
Right. I mean, and because you want to continue to replicate those successes, obviously that's kind of key. Or how can you make it more efficient?
Right.
And if you got, beat over the head, I'm sure I got beat up a lot during, that first half of the year as well. I took inventory of some of the really bad experiences, but the smaller ones, kind of those, kind of fly under the radar mistakes where it could help clean up, I never took inventory of it. And I was like, how the hell did I get here? And I finally thought to myself, I was like, man, 5 years now. And then, what do I have to show for it? Other than some bumps and bruises and, some successes. But besides that, I can't put a finger on, what it was. Because I think when you reflect, it has to be deep. You have to think about how, why. You got to stop. It has to be a deliberate thought.
Yeah.
And especially for me, the negative ones. If you have negative experiences, you have to go back and reflect on it. And go into it, like, well, who is involved? How did it get here? Because when you start to kind of dive into it, the truth comes out. And if you're somebody who's always striving to achieve and do better, 9 times out of 10 you'll point the finger at yourself on, at what could I have done better? How could I have manipulated that situation, or how could I have handled that situation to make it easier or not have to go through that again? So that was very long-winded, but that's where that text message came from, because it just kind of hit me. It was that like aha moment, like, man, you got to start writing this stuff down and taking time deliberately to really think about these type of things.
So did you?
Yeah, it's funny. I did, but very superficially. I took 3 minutes and was like, oh, man, we did that. And I hit all the kind of the big milestones.
Yeah.
I set these big milestones in my head and what I wanted to accomplish, what I wanted to do. And I hit the big ones. But there's always the small victories where, that's when you stop and smell the roses, so to speak.
Right.
I just I walked right through the rose bush. I just went, didn't stop and smell the roses, just kept going, because there's the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. But I think at that time, too, when I was talking to you, the tank was empty.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I was like, like I hit these goals, but I needed something to fill me back up again. Like, I needed little wins to kind of get me back motivated and moving in the right direction.
Yeah, it's like an EKG. It's like monitors the heartbeat or the heart rate, and it's like almost like a visual representation of what's going on. And if I have like an irregular heartbeat, so the doctor will point out where he's like, you see that right there is like the, that specific sound.
Right.
That's what it's showing us, and he could just grab the printout of the EKG and point it out in like 2 seconds.
Right.
And that's exactly where the problem is. So it's kind of that's a reflection of what's going on in your heart. Mm-hmm. Would it be the same thing where if you can do that every quarter, once a quarter, or whatever, on a weekly basis, however, the frequency is really up to you.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And to your discretion, but you can, if you do it, the more you do it, I should say the more often you do it,
mm-hmm.
the easier it is going to be to point out where the things where, for example, like if you brought in help, like if you contracted somebody and all of a sudden production went through the roof that week or that month, you can easily point out, it was because we had these, contractors here,
right?
Because of X, Y, and Z. But if you do that, this is February, we're in February now, and you look back and you're reflecting of January 2018, it's like, why was production up the first quarter? Now you just bundled it into the first quarter, when if you did it on a monthly basis, you can attribute it directly.
Right. Yeah. Those are changes that can be made deliberately.
Right.
They're not just the sweeping change, because sweeping change is hard. You can make a conscious decision. Okay, we'll change this month, or we'll change this thought every day, and it just becomes easier. It becomes habitual. It becomes a habit. And I think that's what I missed the first 5 years. There were things that we did one thing well. We did good. We called people back. I knew we were good at that.
Yeah.
But in those callbacks, we didn't really get better. Like, how quick did we get back? How fast did we find the information? Did we get, how did we deliver the information? Those little things were never fine-tuned. It was just, we were good at that.
Yeah.
And that was it. You know what I mean? So I didn't
Right.
reflect on that as, how could we grow that particular strength and even stronger portion of our game, so to speak.
Yeah. I mean, I thought it was interesting, too. You said something about even the bad times or negative times when you should reflect. So I do, when you said that, I just thought of like repair. So it's a great point on like the repairing process of if something bad happens when you were reflecting, you can go back and replay the scenario and how you actually wanted it to happen. And, I guess contemplate on how you can improve next time. If that were to happen again, if that specific situation were to happen again, what the remedy would be.
Sure. I think for me, the whole time, and I'm sure everybody else is the same way, how the hell did I get there? Because there's always those things that happen. It's kind of, it escalates, right? Well, where was step one? So the next time you get to step one, you won't get to step two. That would have led to step 7, which got you in this situation. Identifying those things that happened, realizing the feelings, who's involved, why, how do they feel, how do they react? I mean, there's a whole bunch that I think I overanalyze, and sometimes you get analysis of or paralysis of analysis.
Yeah.
You know, you don't want to get stuck in that either. You don't want to overanalyze either when you're reflecting, because then you just become, you know, stuck. 'Cause
Right.
You're overthinking it too much,
And
in my opinion, anyway.
To go back to the EKG thing, if the doc sees a normal heartbeat, then there's nothing to, you know,
Right.
critique.
Mhm.
It's fine. But when you go into the bumps and you see the bumps, why were we so high or why were we so low? That's where you kind of aim back at. I'm a, you know, I love like inspirational quotes and motivational quotes or whatever. I have it, you know, slapped all over my social media accounts. And one of them I saw from one of the guys that I follow said, "You learn nothing from winning." And I remember I went on this like huge like rant and replied back to that. I'm like, I've learned a whole lot from winning. You know, you learned what works.
Mm-hmm.
If you learn nothing from winning, that means you learn nothing from losing, because they're the opposites of each other. And if you don't have winning, then you don't. Without winning, you can't have losing.
Right.
Without losing, you can't have winning. So you do learn something. I mean, you have to learn something. That makes no sense to me. So you know what works.
Yeah.
You know what doesn't work. If you're I think what he was trying to say was, you know, there was no. I don't know what he was trying to say. Maybe he was trying to say like there was no struggle in winning or something. But to me, the times that I ran there's a lot of struggle that was behind all that.
I mean, you don't learn anything and always winning. It's maybe the missing part of the quote or something.
I guess.
I think the more profound things are found in losses. You know what I mean? Yeah, because I think
It's the most growth.
you get
Yeah.
the most
Yeah.
growth from losing. You know, when you fall down, you really got to pick yourself back up.
I don't know.
And there's a lot there. I mean, it's easy to win. I mean, right? I mean, it's easy. It's
I don't
easy.
think so.
It is. No, it's
When-
when you're winning. It's just that's an easy. That's
When
an
you win and
easy
you
emotion.
won, there's no correction. You're just gonna keep doing what you're doing.
Right, but what happens if you win for the first time?
Excite.
Yeah, you're excited.
Wow,
sure, the
absolutely.
emotion.
You just
Yeah, so you learn a lot from that.
develop-
Profound.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
develop.
That is
Yeah.
absolute. Think about LeBron James when he won with the Cavaliers. That emotion that he finally got to that huge goal that he didn't do with
Yeah.
the original team. That's a big moment.
Sure.
Of course, there's a bunch of little
Something you
what's it called? That
develop
are, yeah,
to-
Well, I mean, there were huge losses before that. I mean, he
that's
spent.
what I'm saying.
Yeah, but there again, going back to the point, there was more. Like he probably learned more from losing. So the first time he went to
Sure.
Miami, lost the championship. I think he probably learned more about himself, his team, and how to lead in that first time not winning a championship. So the second and third year, you know, when he did win those championships, he might have learned more, so to speak. You obviously
Yeah,
do.
there's
Not
no-
it's not to take away from you. Absolutely don't. You learn from winning. There's no doubt.
Yeah.
No doubt.
Yeah, so all right, so just going back to you know, to the reflecting part, do you think that there's a certain power or like advantage of reflecting? I know we're talking about what we're doing for reflecting or why we should reflect, but what's
There-
specifically the advantage?
You're doing it. Not everybody reflects. I mean, either you don't have time or you just really don't care to.
Yeah.
To reflect deeply. You go back
Yeah.
and think like, "Oh, that wasn't a good experience." But go back and think about what about that experience wasn't good or bad. If you're doing it, you're already a step to me, you're already a step ahead because you're learning from that experience and you're better prepared to handle whatever comes your way because you're kind of armed with the knowledge to know how to handle it next time.
Yeah.
So if you're doing it immediately, you're more powerful than the next person, or you have, you're a step ahead, or
Gives you
just
that
a thought
edge.
ahead. Absolutely, there is that, and any edge, especially in your career, is, I mean, it's undeniable.
Well, they say like even like in the Olympics, like the from second to like 20th place is like seconds.
Oh yeah,
It's only hundreds of
tens
seconds
yeah.
that, you know,
Mhm.
whatever. So whatever edge you can get, I mean, there's books on this stuff,
Sure.
but you know, the winning edge and stuff like that, but the edge can be so slight.
Sure.
Actually, there's a book called The Slight Edge, and it talks about things like that, what you can do to just get that advantage on your opponents or in life in general. Someone was also talking about is like, how do you go through life not knowing yourself? That's just part of the process. It's the most basic quote that's, you know, people always talk about is like, know thyself, blah, blah, blah. People don't realize how deep that actually is. For example, if you are a person who gets completely weak every time you pass by a fast food restaurant
Right.
and you pull in and then you get a
Right.
cheeseburger and french
Right.
fries and you just keep doing it and you're overweight and you're not happy with yourself, there's some people that love that and they're happy with themselves, fine. But if you keep doing it and you keep upsetting yourself, you know, that you're not comfortable in your own skin kind of thing, why would you keep passing by the fast food restaurant and pulling in? That's not knowing yourself. If you know that's how weak you are, then avoid that at all costs. That's working on yourself. Whereas, you know, someone who doesn't reflect, if we're going back to the edge, and just continually goes back to the same stuff and expects a different result, which we all know is the classic Albert Einstein quote, you know, repeatedly doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. Reflection has that advantage. And again, I believe it depends on how deep you reflect. 'Cause some people,
Yeah, I mean, for the easy one for me was, you know, everybody wants to work out, right? Everyone wants to be healthy, you know. So you set yourself up the night before when you're feeling good. I used to tell myself, just get up in the morning and work out. It didn't happen. After going through it, you got to set yourself up for success, right?
Yeah.
So the first time that alarm rings and you don't get up, your day's shot. Because you've already been beat one time. You're not starting off in a positive light, and I know that.
Yeah.
So I've not committed myself to the morning. I know that I'm just not going to do it.
yeah.
You know, is that a lack of willpower? Sure, but that's also being able to know I'm putting myself in a position to be successful. So I'll do it at night, and I'll force myself to do it at night. It's easier to do it then. You know, you don't want. I reflected enough to know. Finally, I was like, "Oh, be real with yourself." Reflection is. I mean, is truth. You're telling yourself the truth. Listen to the truth, because it's exactly what it is. And I finally said to myself, "I'm not going to do it. I'm just not going to tell myself I'm going to do it." That was part of that's an easy one for me. I'm sure there's deeper ones that I thought, but that's one that I struggle with till today.
So I know you were talking about, you know, what you did at work or whatever. Are you going to do anything with these reflections, with this newfound reflection specifically? Like, did you come up with changes that you're going to do for this coming year?
Yes, you know, and I started to write things down. I know everybody says you should always be writing stuff down. It's more of a conscious decision to start writing stuff down, kind of goals to meet, because everybody has goals in their head, right? You know, I'll be able to do this, and then 17 goes by and you haven't accomplished one of those goals. So started to write them down, little things I wanted to improve, and they're small. I mean, they're incremental changes, but together they're, you know, it's a big movement.
Yeah.
But yeah, I started just to kind of write them down, just be more conscious of it.
So the whole Rotated Views podcast began from a thought that we've got from, you know, conversations that we had in like our small circles while just hanging out, reminiscing. So is reflection a form of reminiscence? Is that a word? I don't even know.
Evanescence?
Well, I can't be, 'cause,
Reminiscing?
I mean, yeah, you do, because you talk about the old time. You know, that can be, it can be on a friendly basis. It can be like on a, you know, just, you know, when we have like the crazy like in-depth talks, like it's just re-bringing out the stuff that, you know, that's good. Like it could be, you know, like you have the old friends you always go back to, and you always, you know, you pick up where you left off type stuff.
Yeah.
That can be like reflecting. That's just like more nostalgic than it is like, I guess,
Yeah.
reflecting than anything else. But yeah, I mean, it can go both ways. We reflect on what we've done, like we've done every so often. Like we go to the backyard and chill and like talk about all the stuff that we've done, and like, oh, now how can we prove that type of situation?
Right.
So it can go nostalgic reason, or it can just, you know, it can actually build upon what you've already been doing.
Yeah.
Reminiscing is, I mean, it's positive, right? Reminiscing. I don't ever remember reminiscing about something negative, right?
Yeah.
You always, if you reminisce, it tends to be
Yeah.
positive.
Absolutely.
It takes you
tends-
to
You
a,
think about the good times.
it tends to be.
Because there was times we
bring up-
reminisced about some bad things. We could not
Yeah.
stop laughing, and we laughed about it, but it was bad things.
Yeah.
Well, because in hindsight,
Like me and Evan, like
Oh, sure.
the dumb stuff that we did as teenagers, they're bad stuff, but we're just laughing at
But
them.
you're so far removed from that
Right.
situation that now you can laugh about
Yeah.
it. As
Yeah, but
opposed
at
to-
the time, as bad as it is now as an adult, at the time it brought you joy. Obviously, you thought it was funny or something. I mean, it always brings you, reminiscing always brings you back to a kind of a happier place, regardless of how bad it was. Something that you did, you laughed and you thought it was funny.
All right, so we did talk about this. Manny, you said this, that, you know, reflection obviously is a form of a strategy because it gives you the edge. But do you think people are afraid to reflect? Or anybody? Does anybody feel like people are afraid to reflect? Maybe it'll bring back a painful memory, for example.
If you're scared to question yourself, or if you're afraid to fail, or you're afraid of criticism, then yes. Yeah, there's no doubt in my mind, yes. If you don't like when somebody calls me fat, right? My mom's coworker was like, he's gotten chubby. You know, 12 years ago, I worked at this place at 18 years old. And she's like, my mom showed a picture of my family. And the guy was like, oh, man, it looks like he's gained some weight. And I immediately got defensive and got mad. But it was the truth. It was the truth. And I had to go back. I literally reflected on that moment, like, what happened? Like, why did I get mad? Why did I? But, you know, from that moment spawned, okay, we got to go to the gym. Like, that's it. That was kind of the aha moment.
It's to reflect. It's reflect to correct. Like, you look it back and you want to fix what was going on in that situation.
Sure.
Like you just said, go back. I want to work out.
Right.
I didn't realize it. I was a little chubby, but I want to go back to the gym and correct it.
Sure.
So sometimes to go back and reflect on what situations are to correct it is not a bad thing.
I mean, there's also the biggest one for me, the easiest one, and we've all been there. When we've had, you know, in a job, in your career, trying to move up in advancement or whatever the case is, and you've had a superior come down, and your interaction after you walked away from it, you're like, what the hell did I just say? Like, that's a perfect time to like, I've replayed multiple times, like, what was I wearing? In my head, what was I wearing? Like, why did I wear this today? And I went back and thought about the whole thing. Why did I say that right there?
Take that step back and like, what
and those are the big things. So I'm sure all of us have had that experience, and we've learned, and, you know, hopefully have learned and moved on and haven't had that situation. I'm sure we continue to do it, but
and I feel like some people don't reflect because of the pain it brings back. And my thing is that you don't want to, and I guess we're all guilty of this, deal with
that was the point of my story.
Right.
Like,
and
the
so
truth comes out and it hurts. Right.
Yes, exactly. It reminded me immediately of the show Hoarders. And they had like the psychologists come in and break down why certain people hoard. And I'm not giving like a blanket statement, but they're saying, you know, one of the guys who was a hoarder lost his home when he was 18 years old, like to a fire or something like that. So then after that traumatic event happened to him, he wanted to keep everything. He never wanted to lose everything ever again. So he just kept collecting stuff and, you know, to the point where it consumed his life, and he couldn't actually function in society. And to me, he was like, well, what happened? Either that was him dealing with it, but then there was no, I guess, you know, the reflection part, I guess, when we're talking about is dealing with it and taking careful consideration. Like, all right, why am I here? Well, we know the psychologist definitely reflected on or understood those levels of, you know, why someone, you know, acts the way they act. I don't know if that's even a good example of saying the hoarder thing, but because to me, it's not going back in time to fix something. You just let the pain stay there, and you're just covering it up.
Some people are just scared to do it. Scared to reflect.
It's tough to hear the truth about yourself.
Big time.
It's tough. I mean, when you get criticized, how do you feel immediately? Like the first time you just immediately get defensive, or you're you're immediately butthurt.
You're the most invested person in you. That's why. And so this happens to artists all the time. I talked about this when we had Kim D on. We were talking about like the creative process and how much, you know, time and energy you put into your own artwork, and then you present it to somebody, and then it's up for criticism.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And in the back of your mind, it's like, whoa, it's not up for criticism. It is what it is. That's why it's art. But then people are just like, well, that's a terrible piece of art. And you're just like, oh,
they throw their opinion at you.
I'm
like
demolished.
You asked for it.
All right. So the topic is reflection, and the title is Man in the Mirror. So when you guys think about this, you know, what do you see when you look in the mirror? What are the thoughts that rush to your head? Is there something that you want to see? Are you proud of the person? Do you like the person? Are you working on that person? Is that person confident? I remember this topic was brought up when we were in a home-based business, and I remember like that has to be the weirdest thing, just staring at yourself. Like, you look in the mirror, I look in the mirror, do my hair, to do other
You don't actually,
things,
like,
to
look at
shave or
yourself.
whatever, but I'm just staring at myself in the mirror, and I never understood the concept until I grasped it on a much deeper level, where it was the actual reflection of you. What is that telling? When you first see that, what is it reflecting on the inside? And then that's when you say, like, if you can't look at yourself in the eyes in the mirror, what are you portraying outside to the outside world?
Right.
And a lot of times people their coping mechanisms can be various stuff. But one of the things they say to do is, when you're reflecting, is play back those, bad, I guess, things about that you think are bad about yourself, and replace them with the good ones. And then to the point till eventually they become the good ones, and all of a sudden your bad habits become your good habits. And then the next time you go and look in that mirror, even if it's not the best thing you've ever seen, it's an improved version of yourself. And I didn't grasp that. I thought it was the weirdest thing for the longest time, probably for over a year. I didn't even I tried the exercise like twice, and I'm like, this makes no sense. I didn't get it on a deeper level. I thought I was just literally staring at myself.
Look at me.
I'm like, what am I supposed to get out of this?
Yeah.
But then I think there comes like a whole nother, sector of a topic when you're talking about looking at yourself in a mirror, because like I said before, we're the most vested person in ourselves, right? If we don't love us, who's gonna, we can't expect for, someone else to be
compensate
that
that.
source.
Yeah.
Yeah, but people do. That's when, you get into these abusive relationships, whether it's, I'm more talking emotional abuse, where it's someone, you have to do something for someone to make them happy, and you feel that way. And I just heard a story Joe Osteen gave, was on that specific thing, where he had a friend that if he didn't hang out with his friend, the friend would make him feel bad every time. And basically he spent all this time hanging out with his friend just to make his friend feel happy again.
Right.
So I guess that somewhat plays into kind of what we're talking about, but
When you do, let's just say we do look in the mirror, and we've all done it. My knee-jerk reaction to myself,
pop that pimple.
Yeah. I'm someone, I feel like I'm a confident person.
Yeah.
But if I'm looking in the mirror, I'm the biggest critic of myself. I mean, I almost beat myself down. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Like, when you guys look at yourself, is it more negative than positive, or you need to change this to get better? Or do you look at yourself like,
It's just that
let's do
feeling
this?
of perfection you want, like, inside your head what you look like or what you think you look like, and then you see it, it's not there. You just like want that, like that. I feel like it's just like that view of perfection.
Like you wish you can be better, and like you just want that.
Yeah, in your head, know it can be better.
Yeah.
You know it.
I think, to me also, I think it depends on where you are in your life.
Yeah.
So, like, if something good just happened, like,
Oh, you're super confident.
yeah, and then you
positive.
stare in the mirror like, dude, you're the man, dog.
Yeah.
Man. You know what I mean?
That's what I say.
It's the times you got to be careful with when, stuff's not going that well, and then you look at yourself in the mirror and you're like, then you just beat yourself up. That can be a dangerous area.
I think that's where reflection helps with riding those waves, because you never want to be too high. You want to
Right.
be humble when you're successful, but you don't want to be so low where you're down there, but you still
can't
have
bring
enough.
yourself back
Yeah,
up.
you got to be confident enough to be like, no, we're good, man. We're on the upswing here. So that's where I think reflection helps with keeping yourself kind of in the middle, just
Yeah.
always on an even keel.
Yeah. I just feel like if everyone can realize that not every time someone looks in a mirror, if they're genuinely reflecting, is gonna necessarily like what they see.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Physically, yeah.
You're not gonna be 100% confident. With let's just say the results, or happy. Let's just say with the results that is like, oh, I can do better. And I feel like that is like the human soul, so to speak. We're constantly like wanting or like reaching for more, I guess. That it's never gonna be there. And some people say like, oh, I'm satisfied with X, Y, and Z. Yeah, but there is some subject or some area in your life that you're not satisfied.
Yeah.
You might be satisfied in your relationships. You might be satisfied with your career. You might be satisfied with your finances, but maybe it's physically you're not satisfied. Or you might be satisfied physically, there's no one person that's satisfied in everything. That would be perfection, and that doesn't exist.
Exactly.
So there's something that we're all working on or not, quote, satisfied. If I don't know if that'll help someone, like to think like, oh, you're always beating yourself up every time you whatever. It's like everyone's going through their own battle.
Because no matter how well you come across, there's always something inside that somebody else is screwing themselves up with.
Yeah, it was like I'm not even gonna say. I had a doctor come up to me and say, "Oh man, I wish life was I wish my life was as easy as yours." And he said it fairly serious, right? And I said, "Dude, just because I make it look easy doesn't mean it is." He started dying laughing and then actually kind of somewhat apologized. He's like, "I don't even know why you even said that." He's like, "You just had a smile. You walked by me and had like a smile on your face."
And that was his reaction to you?
Yeah.
That was enough for him to.
So
make a
I don't think.
comment.
I think it flew out of his mouth. I don't think he necessarily meant it. But
Maybe he
in
was
a
trying to say
deeper
that he wanted to be as happy as you, like
Yeah, maybe
that
It
level
just
of
came out weird.
in a weird backhand.
happiness you look
on
like
a-
you're in.
On a deeper level, I think that might have been his actual thought.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I bet you he went back and reflected on that.
Oh
comment.
yeah,
he did.
exactly. That was an interesting moment. We just every time we see each other, we just laugh.
That's great.
When now you're reminiscing.
Yeah, now
Yeah,
we're reminiscing.
reminiscing,
Right?
yep.
Yeah, because we're bringing up memories.
Yeah.
Good ones.
Memorandums.
So the reality is that reflection is the truth, and it's the result of your past. You have to be able to handle it and improve. Do you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely.
You learn from everything. Like you said, you learn from your wins. You learn from your losses. You learn about, everything. Everything should be a learning moment, right? I mean, if you're not learning something, you're not. What's the point of living if you're just literally just taking up space and breathing?
Right.
You got to be moving towards something. My opinion.
So, and I agree. So, what was the most interesting thing you ever contemplated in your life? Not have to be like the most like outrageous thing, but just maybe just an interesting, or maybe something that you have contemplated and you're thinking. Because contemplating has some form or element of reflecting, like you're going back and forth with thoughts. You're careful consideration. So you're kind of going back and forth, like, should I do that? Should I not do it?
Mine was moving out for the very first time.
Yeah.
Contemplating on, do I really want to leave mom and pop's house? Do I really want to take that next big step? Can I afford? That means no more spending on myself. That means I have to now start providing. Like, there was a lot going through my head, and I'm like, well, it's time to step up the game and do what you got to do.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that was like my biggest.
That I didn't even think of that one, but that is a big one, I think, for anyone who moves out or whatever, or when you have like a child and you got to think of
Well, yeah, it wasn't like
all this.
my whole thing was that my wife now got pregnant, so it was like I always said to myself, I would never be that type of person that just off and left and let them let her be pregnant and have a child somewhere else. I want it to be a unit as one.
Yeah.
So that's why I said to myself, I was like, well, it's time to step up the game. Like, no more bull crap, and you have to really get this together. And it was like there was so much going through my head. And
But that was
back-
almost forced, right? Like in your mind, it was the situation forced the hand.
Yes and no.
Like, cause you obviously you had a decision to make.
I had a decision to make,
Right.
and the decision I wasn't forced to move out.
No.
That was my decision because in my head, like I said, I didn't want to be that guy.
Your principles told you that was
Right, like
yeah.
this is what you need to do, and this is what you always said to yourself is that you have to be there to provide, to support. So that's what was always in my head. So it wasn't. I mean, yeah, like I said, yes and no. It was forced. So I
Right,
mean,
right,
it's like
right,
one of
right.
those. But yeah, that
I
was the
think a
biggest.
majority of contemplation is not forced, but it happens to you, and that's the reason. Like a lot of people don't want to just sit around and contemplate.
Yeah.
Correct.
That's just the most obnoxious conversation if you ever had one with someone who pontificates everything. Oh my gosh, you want to drive someone crazy. Coming up with a bunch of scenarios that never happened and possibly could never happen, but they're still with the
contemplating.
careful consideration. He's like, what is the point of that? Oh, it's the worst.
Off the wall situation.
Yeah, and for no reason. Like, there's no goal of doing it. Like, if we're trying to say, like, let's really try to solve this problem, like, we went to the escape room, right? So if anyone doesn't know what the escape room is, it's kind of like this literally it's a room or multiple rooms depending on your location.
You have clues and stuff.
Yeah, that you get clues and you're trying to basically solve the whole mystery of whatever situation
how you got locked in the room, whatever.
Yeah, and so each clue leads to
The next
the next clue, and then that's how you escape out of the room or whatever. That's the overall goal. You have like an hour to get out. Anyway, if that was the case, then yes, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But just to literally just go make up problems and then go over them, and then we're always like, what in the world did that just do?
So
There's no real goal in sight.
So what is that then? Do you ever have you guys had a situation? You have an interview, and I don't know if this is reflection or forecasting, or I don't know what this is, but you ever sit and think about, all right, what are they going to ask me?
Yeah, like you're
And then
going.
you have-
but that's preparation. That's more in preparation.
Yeah,
Preparation,
exactly.
yeah.
I feel like that's prepping because it's an actual possibility. So you don't
Right.
know. So
True.
you're going over the different scenarios for actual possibilities of the unknown.
So that's preparation.
Yeah,
not,
you're just
not
prep-
reflection.
yeah, that's-
It's
Because
going
there's actually a goal
backwards.
in mind of you potentially getting a job.
Yeah,
Got you.
Just making up weird scenarios that
That's called being smart.
most likely would never happen
Overanalyzation.
is a totally different. That's like an abstract. Doesn't make any. That's a lesson in just problem solving. I guess.
Yeah, I mean it's great because you have a very creative mind, but I mean,
What's
got
the
things
point?
to do. Yeah. Was there a time in your life where you just completely got disgusted with yourself, and what did you do? I feel like this happened to me a bunch of times, and it wasn't really in a negative way. It was just like, all right, I'm done. Like there's, I just got fed up with myself really on something, and I'm just like, all right, I'm not doing that ever again. And then you just make a big change. Sometimes it's not something that you even like make concrete as like it's written down. You call 5 people and you go over it. Sometimes you just make it up in your head. Like, I'm never doing that again.
Yeah.
My first job, coming out of college.
Not the
It
one
was
you got
just
told
you-
to go home.
No, not that one. My first real job out of college, I was forced to get a job with benefits because I put myself in a situation that I had to get benefits and start working. I literally just went in and I didn't care, didn't bother me. There was nothing motivating me to do anything. I just
Yeah.
was showing up and just collecting a check.
Yeah.
And
going
it
through
got
the motions.
Yeah, going through the motion. It just got to the point like, this is sucked.
Yeah.
It was the easiest job in the world, and I could probably still be there doing the same damn thing.
Yeah.
But it was just I got to the point where like I couldn't wait. It was 12 o'clock, and I couldn't wait till 3:30 because I had
Oh,
3.5
man.
hours of nothing,
Yeah.
and I wasn't motivated enough because I didn't care to be like, oh, let's go meet a
Do
customer, let's
extra
do
or
this, and I was
whatever,
just like, oh man, I'm good. I sat there for 3.5 hours just counting the seconds. I just got to the point where I just can't do this anymore. That's it.
How long did you work there for?
In that position, it only took 6 months to figure out.
Yeah, but it took you. Oh, it took you 6
It took
months.
me 6 months to figure out because I was in that
you-
position for 6 months.
Okay.
So I was under somebody who was giving me direction. So after I was done giving direction, it was just like, all right, now what? I'm glad they're doing it. Well,
Yeah.
well, what's your plan? What's your next step? How are you gonna? And,
How are you gonna improve?
and I finally was just like, I got to the point 6 months, like I can't do this, and I made a career change, jumped ship, did something totally different, running something totally not even close to what my degree is or what I was currently in or at
Yeah.
the time was in. I just jumped ship altogether and just left.
Yeah.
That was the moment where I was like, I'm out. That's it. Done.
That's awesome.
Yep. I don't know, it was scary, but yeah. I
Oh,
did it.
sure. All right. So, what would you tell someone who sees nothing but bad when they look in the mirror? So, the man in the mirror is always bad, whether it's emotionally or physically. They just do not like the person they are. First of all, we got to think of why we're reflecting, or when you look at the person, that we have to understand, I guess, that life is a progression. And in progression, hopefully, but even though when it looks like it's kind of like what Manny was talking about earlier, saying you learn from hopefully you learn from your mistakes, because not everyone does. To say that when negative things happen, you're learning. A lot of times people don't. They keep doing the same knucklehead things that got them in that same scenario, and they keep ending back there.
Mm-hmm.
But if eventually you can just at least grasp the concept that the goal is not to be perfect every time.
Yeah.
because it's never going to happen. But if you know at least that you're trying,
Yeah.
and then once your efforts are there and you say that they're not good enough, I promise you they're better than what you think, number
Yeah.
one. And as long as you're giving an effort to improve or just trying to change or do something, like if you're looking in the mirror and all you see is bad, you have to come to a point where you have to be open to change, because obviously what you're doing is not working in your mind. So you have to be like, okay, now what do I need to do? And you might not have all the answers. I'm not saying you're going to have all the answers. But if you're that person that constantly looks in the mirror and is not happy with what you see, you have to realize that it's going to take a change. I'm not saying a massive change. I'm not saying a little change. I'm saying just a change, just whatever that, you want to define that as. But there has to be a change. You can't constantly, here's the thing, you can't constantly do the same thing and then always be mad.
Yeah.
That makes no sense at all. So being open to change, just be open to change. Do something different. Maybe you want to ask somebody for advice, or go buy a book, or go watch a video on something on whatever area you want to improve on. You have to want to, see something different in that mirror.
But even sometimes like with like I guess it's easy to focus on the negative is the problem too. So it's like there's always something positive that usually happens, but it's so easy to ignore it for the fact that there's like you have the quote unquote bad day, which there's positive stuff happening there too. But it's so easy to see the quote unquote trail that led to like this horrible day, but even though there was like sprinkling of everything, of probably both sides in between. So
Right.
it's just easy to focus on the one side and the other. So I try to be more aware of the positive that happens and try to more focus on that as opposed to always focusing on the negative part, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, and I think also going back to and matching up your result with your expectations.
Yes.
Because it has to be one of my biggest learning curves was what I was expecting and what my results were, and just led to absolute confusion and frustration. I was always frustrated with certain things, not realizing what my expectations were one thing, but my actions were different, and I would have never reached what my expectations were.
Yeah.
I set myself up for failure in certain things. So it was like, well, no wonder you're mad at yourself. You're always frustrated
Right.
because you're not, what you set out to do will never happen. So you just set yourself up for failure.
Yeah, you set proper
So you have
expectations.
to, I would say, reflect on your expectations. What are your expectations? That's basically what frustration is, when your results don't match up to your expectations of what it was supposed to be or what you thought it was going to be. That's another thing I would say is check out what your expectations are. Be open to change, and focus on more positive things. Focus on something that you do like.
And
Gabe
also,
said.
I guess surround yourself with more positive people too, if you can.
Absolutely. All right, cool. So, with that being said, we will wrap the episode up with quotes from Thomas Paine and Alan Cohen. The first one by Thomas Paine. The real man smiles in trouble, gathers strength from distress, and grows brave by reflection. And the second one is by Alan Cohen. Everyone and everything that shows up in our life is a reflection of something that is happening inside of us. I absolutely love that. That's deeper than what most people probably are thinking right now, too.
Wow.
Again, we'll go back to this, but look up law of attraction stuff. That blows your mind. Anyway, so there it is, Man in the Mirror. In this episode, we discussed reflection, contemplation, self-inquiry, and insight. We review the lyrics to Michael Jackson's song, Man in the Mirror. We completely break down the process of reflection, the importance of it, and its advantages. We wrap the episode up with quotes from Alan Cohen and Thomas Paine. Awesome. Guys, thanks again for joining us. The Rotated Views podcast was produced for self-development purposes. Huge shout out to our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by the Blessed Lifestyle brand. That is BL3SSED.com. Also sponsored by The Motivation Files Unleashed. This motivational mixtape will be your fuel for success. Available on all platforms. Guys, don't forget to visit the website, JimmyleeVelez.com. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Rotated Views. If you have any inquiries or questions, email us at info@JimmyleeVelez.com. On behalf of myself and the rest of the crew, we wish you massive success. Stay blessed.